All right, let's just jump right in today. We're skipping the usual long intros because we've got a seriously fascinating language puzzle to solve in this explainer. You know, if you've ever tried picking up French, you've probably hit a wall when it comes to one of the absolute most basic concepts, ownership. Seriously, today we're going to completely demystify a core piece of French vocabulary that trips up practically every single English speaker.
So here's the central mystery we are tackling. In English, right, if I want to talk about something that belongs to me, I just say my. My car, my dog, my house, my coffee. It literally never changes. It's this incredibly static, reliable little word we just take for granted. But in French, the word for my seems to bounce around constantly depending on what exactly you're talking about. It can feel like you're trying to hit a moving target. So why does it change? And maybe more importantly, how on earth can we predict it?
Okay, let's dive into this. To crack this code, we're looking directly at a Unit 6 guidebook that's designed specifically to outline grammar tips and key phrases. We're going to use the exact sentences straight from this guide to completely rewire how you think about possessives. To set a baseline and get comfortable with how French sentences flow, let's take a look at this key phrase from the guidebook. Elle parle espagnol et français. She speaks Spanish and French. It's a really straightforward, beautifully simple sentence. You've got your subject, your verb, and the languages being spoken. No complicated ownership here at all, just a crystal clear statement of fact. And here's one more baseline phrase, just to build out our context. Tu parles français ou anglais avec Paul? Which means, do you speak French or English with Paul? Again, totally standard communication. We have verbs for speaking and vocabulary for languages like French and English. You can kind of see how the basic structure holds together. But now that our brains are nicely warmed up to the language, we're going to introduce the grammatical twist. Now, what's really interesting about this comparison is the absolutely glaring inconsistency if you're viewing this through an English lens. On the left, we have Mon mari est mexicain, my husband is Mexican. On the right, Ma mère parle espagnol avec moi, my mother speaks Spanish with me. Look closely at the English translations for a second. They both start with my, but look at the French. On the left, we use moi for my husband. On the right, we use ma for my mother. We literally have two completely different words for the exact same English translation. To deepen the mystery just a bit, check out this next key phrase. Mon frère parle anglais et français. My brother speaks English and French. Look closely at that very first word, mon. We just saw mon used for husband, and now here it is being used for brother. Meanwhile, mother used ma. I want you to ask yourself, can you spot the pattern here? What do a husband and a brother have in common that a mother does not? So the crucial point is this. We're looking at a total paradigm shift. In French, possessive adjectives, the words for my, change based entirely on the gender of the noun they are describing, completely independent of the gender of the person who is actually speaking. Let that sink in for a second. If you are a woman talking about your husband, you do not use a feminine word just because you are female. You use a masculine word because the word husband is a masculine noun. The power, the ultimate grammatical control belongs entirely to the object being possessed, not the possessor. It's wild, right? The guidebook's tips section anchors this rule beautifully. It is perfectly binary and honestly super logical once you finally grasp it. If the noun's gender is masculine, the word for my is mon. If the noun's gender is feminine, the word for my is ma. That is your golden rule. You memorize the gender of the vocabulary word, and the correct form of my instantly locks right into place like a puzzle piece. And we can prove this rule by applying it to the guidebook's specific examples. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how far-reaching this grammar rule really is. We have mon père, which means my father. Father is obviously a masculine person, so mon makes perfect intuitive sense. But look at that second bullet, mon jardin, meaning my garden. A garden obviously doesn't have a biological gender, but in French grammar, the word jardin is classified as a masculine noun. Therefore, it absolutely must take mon. Now let's move on and contrast that with the feminine nouns provided in the text. We've got ma mère for my mother and ma sœur for my sister. Just like with father and brother, these are biologically female, so the feminine ma feels very natural to us. But then we hit ma maison, my house. Just like the garden, a house is an inanimate object. It's just bricks and wood. But in French, maison is a grammatically feminine word, so it claims the feminine ma. Once you know the noun's gender, you hold the absolute key to the possessive adjective, the whole shebang. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer.
Understanding this rule completely changes how you have to approach learning French vocabulary from here on out. You can't just learn that maison means house. You literally have to learn that it is a feminine house. This rule matters so much because it is the actual foundation of speaking clearly and correctly. So I'll leave you with this to ponder for your own language journey. Since the word for my relies entirely on the noun, how might you go about figuring out the gender of a brand new French word you have never even seen before? Keep that question in mind the very next time you open up a dictionary. Thanks for joining me today and keep learning.